A warning to our viewers. What you are about to watch is a true story. The following program contains content that some viewers may find disturbing. Viewer discretion is strongly advised.
Just don't do it again. And if you come near the house again,
I won't come near the house again. I won't contact you again. Okay?
I think that's best.
Shauna Grice recorded this telephone conversation with her boyfriend in July 2016. It was a desperate attempt to prove to police that Michael Lane was stalking her. Lane had crept into her home to watch her sleep after stealing her house key. She reported Lane to police for harassment 5 times over 6 months before he murdered her, slitting her throat.
On the morning of the 25th of August 2016, Shauna Grice was brutally murdered in her own home by Michael Lane. Lane had become obsessed with Shauna and could not accept that she did not want to be with him.
And inadequate is exactly the kind of care Shauna Grice received. A young woman who went to police for protection, who was murdered by the very person she'd asked them to protect her from.
So at about 9:45 yesterday morning, Shauna Grice was found dead in her bedroom. Tell me what happened to her. Well, when her body was found, it was clear that someone had assaulted her and they'd tried to set fire to her body. So tell me what you know about what happened to her yesterday.
I only know what I've been told since being in here.
August 25th, 2016. Portslade, Brighton, England. It's just before 10 in the morning when Ian Cook pulls up outside the bungalow on Chrisdory Road. He's here because his son's girlfriend didn't show up for work, didn't call, didn't answer her phone. And that wasn't like her. He knows something is wrong before he even gets to the door. There's smoke-thin but unmistakable seeping through the letterbox. And there, on the doorstep, a single footprint. Dark red against the concrete, but he goes in anyway. The hallway is thick with haze. He then calls out her name. No answer. He moves toward the bedroom and stops. The door won't open. Something is wedged underneath it. Deliberately. A piece of cardboard, pressed hard against the floor. He forces his way through, and then the smoke clears just enough for him to see it. There's a figure on the bed. Long blonde hair, face down, motionless, and blood on the sheets, on the floor, everywhere. Her name was Shauna Grice. She was 19 years old, and here's what makes this case so devastating, more than any other you've ever heard. Shauna actually knew this was coming. She was so scared that she literally went to the police 5 times in 6 months and begged them to stop the man who was doing this to her. Yet, the last time she tried, they fined her £90 for wasting police time. Before we continue, a warning. This case involves deeply disturbing details of stalking, domestic abuse, physical violence, and the murder of a 19-year-old girl who was a daughter, an only child. A young woman with her whole life planned out, and the system that was supposed to protect her but yet blamed her instead. What you're about to hear is a real crime that devastated a real family. Some viewers may find this content deeply upsetting. Viewer discretion is once again strongly advised. Welcome to the Dark Witness Crime Series. Tonight, we uncover a case so disturbing the darkness itself bears witness. Take a moment to hit subscribe, drop a like, and please let us know where you're watching from in the comments below. And now, we begin. But before we get into what happened, you need to know who Shauna really was. Because that's the part that gets lost sometimes in cases like this. The horror overshadows the human, and Shauna Grice deserves better than that. She was born on the 13th of January 1997 in Portslade, a quiet district sitting just on the edge of Brighton on the south coast of England. And if you've never been to Brighton, picture this. A seaside town full of color and energy, Independent shops, live music spilling out of doorways, the smell of salt air, people everywhere. For a young woman just starting out, it felt like possibility in every direction. Shana was her parents' only child. Sharon and Richard's one and only. And I want you to hold on to that detail because it means something. It means there was no sibling to share the grief with later. No one else who understood in quite the same way what was lost. Just two parents and a future that got stolen. Everyone who knew her described her the same way, and I mean almost word for word. Lively, vivacious, bubbly, never grumpy, always smiling. The kind of person who walked into a room and just lifted it. Her family called her a beautiful, kind, thoughtful, caring daughter who always thought of others. Her friends said she was the mum of the group. The one making sure everyone got home safe. The one checking in. Looking out. Pulling people together. At 19 years old, she'd been with her boyfriend Ashley Cook since they were both at school, childhood sweethearts, genuinely. Ashley was a carpenter. Solid, steady, devoted to her. His family absolutely adored Shana. His parents saw the two of them as a natural fit, the kind of couple you just assume will end up together. And they weren't wrong to think that, because Shana and Ashley were already talking about the future. A wedding, kids, even they'd apparently discussed names. Wiley for a boy, Summer for a girl. These were real conversations between two young people who thought they had all the time in the world. In the summer of 2015, Shana landed her first proper job. Receptionist at Brighton Fire Alarms. She was 18. She was buzzing about it. A real job, a real wage, a step toward the life she was building. She moved into a bungalow on Chrisdory Road with two housemates, her own space, her own front door, her independence finally beginning to take shape. She was saving money, saving for that wedding, excited about what came next. And here's the thing that stayed most with me while I researched about Shauna Grice. She wasn't naive. She wasn't reckless. She was just young. 19, and bright, and full of life, doing exactly what you're supposed to do at that age. Getting a job, moving out, falling in love, figuring out who you are. Everything she had was ahead of her. She just needed time. And when she walked through the doors of Brighton Fire Alarms that summer, she had absolutely no reason to think that someone was about to make sure she never got the life she planned. Not a single reason to be on her guard. Now, here's where the story takes a turn. Because working at Brighton Fire Alarms also meant that Shana crossed paths with a man named Michael Lane, 26 years old, 8 years older than her. A mechanic at the same company, and on the surface, completely ordinary, friendly enough, charming even. The kind of guy you wouldn't look twice at. But Michael Lane had a history, a long one, and it stretched back almost a decade before he ever laid eyes on Shana Grice. Between 2006 and 2016, at least 12 women and girls had either reported him or raised serious concerns about his behavior. 12, and the pattern was always the same. He targeted younger women, less experienced, easier to manipulate. He used his access to youth groups deliberately. The Girl Guides. The Scouts. Organizations built on trust, built around children, and he used them as a hunting ground. In 2010, when he was 21 years old, he was arrested on suspicion of grooming a 14-year-old girl he'd met through the Scouts. Arrested. The charges were eventually dropped, not enough evidence, they said, but the police placed a marker on his record, a flag. A warning that was supposed to follow him. It didn't, because in 2015, the same year he met Shana, Michael Lane applied to volunteer with the Scouts again. And they let him back in. Why? Because of what was later described as a temporary glitch in the IT system. His previous record wasn't flagged. He wasn't recognized as a past member. So he walked straight back into a room full of young people, and nobody stopped him. One of his victims, a woman named Ellie Mae, later came forward after his conviction and spoke publicly about what he put her through. He'd been targeting her on and off for over a decade, starting when she was just 10 years old. He sent her pictures of her own bedroom window. Messages that simply read, "I can see you." She'd look out, and there he'd be, sitting in his van, outside her house.
But he'd send me pictures of my bedroom window, as if he's, sitting outside my house. And he'd send me a picture and say, "I can see you." And I'd look out my window and he'd be there and sat outside in his van.
How did you feel when you saw that?
Uncomfortable.
This is who Michael Lane was before Shana ever smiled at him across a reception desk. And here's the thing about men like this, they don't lead with the darkness. That's not how it works. Lane walked up to Shana's desk, and he was warm, attentive, funny. He made her feel like she was the only person in the building worth talking to. Gifts started appearing. Compliments. That constant, flattering attention that can feel, especially at 18, especially in your first real job, especially when your long-term relationship has had its rough patches like something close to magic. Shana was only 18. She'd only ever been with Ashley. And here was this older man, completely focused on her, making her feel chosen. That's not weakness. That's just being human. They began a secret relationship, kept quiet at work, kept hidden from Ashley. And for a while, it felt like something real. It wasn't. Within months, the mask started to slip. The jealousy crept in. The demands. Where are you? Who are you with? Why didn't you answer? By December 2015, Shana had seen enough. So, she ended it. She wanted Ashley back. She wanted her life back. But Michael Lane? He's not buying it, and he makes it clear. That choice wasn't hers to make. What followed next was not a sudden explosion of violence. It never is with men like Michael Lane. It was slow, calculated, a drip, drip, drip of behavior designed to grind her down, and it started almost the moment she ended things. January 13th, 2016. Shana's 19th birthday. She turned up to work, and there was a bouquet of flowers waiting for her. No note. She didn't need one. She knew exactly who they were from. She was so uncomfortable that she reported it to her manager. Not flattered, not touched, uncomfortable. Because she already understood, on some level, that this wasn't romantic, it was a message. Then her car tires got slashed, and who just happened to appear out of nowhere to play the helpful mechanic and offer to fix them? Michael Lane. Think about what that tells you. He slashed them himself, just to have a reason to show up. Just to force his way back into her orbit. Just to make her feel like she needed him. Whilst doing this, he was also sending threatening letters, demanding she pay him back for gifts he'd bought her during the relationship, trying to trap her in a financial connection when every other connection had been cut. And he made it clear. He had intimate messages he wasn't afraid to use against her. Blackmail. That's what this is, from a man she dated for just a few months. And this detail still makes me furious. He secretly fitted a tracking device to the underside of her car. Every time that car moved, his phone pinged. He knew exactly where she was going, at all times, every single day. He'd sneak back every 10 days in the dark to recharge the battery and reattach it. She had no idea. She just knew, somehow, that he always seemed to know where she was. He also went ahead to key Ashley's car deep scratches, right down to the metal, and left a note under the windscreen wiper. It read, "Dear Ash, Shana has and always will cheat on you. Happy New Year." Not the behavior of a heartbroken ex, but the behavior of someone who wants to burn everything around her to the ground. February 8th, 2016. Shauna picks up the phone and calls Sussex Police. And the first thing she says is this, "I don't really know how to start this conversation, but I think I'm being stalked." Let that sit for a second. She didn't even know how to name what was happening to her. She was 19, She'd never dealt with anything like this, and she was already second-guessing herself before the conversation had even begun. Officers later spoke to Lane, gave him a verbal warning, told him to stay away. But no background check was run. No one looked at his record. Because if they had, they would have found a decade's worth of identical complaints from other women. But they didn't look. So, Lane walked away with a warning and absolutely zero consequences. And Lane, being the kind of person he is, ignored it within weeks. March 24th, 2016. Shauna had been at an office party that evening, but she left early, and her two housemates stayed on. When they finally headed home, Michael Lane tagged along. When Shauna answered the door and saw him standing there, she didn't argue. She just grabbed her things and left. She was going to walk to Ashley's. That was the plan. But Lane followed her into the street. He ran up behind her, grabbed her hair, and tried to snatch her phone from her hand, rifling through it, looking for something to use against her. A car driving past actually stopped. The people inside saw what was happening and stepped in. They drove Shana to Ashley's house. Ashley's family called the police. And this is where it gets truly unforgivable. Officer PC Trevor Godfrey arrives. And instead of taking Shauna somewhere private, somewhere she could speak freely, he interviews her in front of Ashley and his entire family. Right there in the living room, in front of her boyfriend. Which meant there was one thing Shana absolutely was not going to say, that she'd previously been in a secret relationship with Michael Lane. So, she didn't say it. Lane, of course, told his version in full. Produced text messages, pointed to the affectionate sign-offs, 5 kisses at the end, apparently. And PC Godfrey looked at all of that and reached his conclusion. He later said, word for word, this is not harassment. It was a smokescreen to disguise her affair. Lane received a caution for an assault he had actually admitted to. Shauna was handed a £90 fine for wasting police time. The entire conversation in which she was told this lasted 84 seconds, less than a minute and a half. That's how long it took them to decide she was the problem. She had just been physically attacked in the street by a man who had been stalking her for months, and the police decided she was the criminal. The impact of that decision is impossible to overstate. Friends said she was devastated afterwards, disheartened, that the fine broke something in her confidence that never fully recovered, because from that moment on, Shauna stopped trusting the people who were supposed to protect her. She quit her job just to stop seeing Lane's face every day. She started asking her friends and family to check in on her every few hours, because she genuinely didn't know what he was capable of. She told them, if you haven't heard from me, worry. And Lane read every bit of that silence as permission. No charges, no consequences, no one taking her side. As far as he was concerned, he had just been handed a green light, so he kept going. And it got worse, a lot worse. Because when a man like Michael Lane realizes there are no consequences, he doesn't stop. He accelerates. The phone calls started not long after the fine. Withheld number. 7 calls in a single day at one point. Every time Shauna answered, nothing, just silence. And then the sound of someone breathing heavily down the line. She knew exactly who it was. She reported it to police. Officers eventually traced the number back to Lane's own landline, his home phone. And still no action was taken. He was also following her car. She'd started a new job by this point, desperate to put distance between herself and Lane. But yet, he was still there in her rear-view mirror, pulling up wherever she went. She reported that too, but it was labeled low risk, and then filed away. Then came July 8th, 2016. Lane came to collect some belongings from Shana's house. And while he was inside, while she had her back turned, he pocketed the key to her back door. She didn't notice. Not until the following morning, July 9th, 2016. 6 in the morning. Shauna is in bed when she hears footsteps. Her bedroom door opens, and a man is standing over her in the dark, just standing there, breathing. She doesn't move. She pulls the duvet up and lies completely still, eyes shut, pretending to be asleep. She told people later she was absolutely terrified. She just lay there and waited, and prayed he would leave. After a minute or two, he did. She got up, went straight to the window, and watched Michael Lane walk away down the street. Now here's the part that tells you everything about how badly the system had already failed her. Because Shana's first instinct wasn't to call the police, it was to get evidence first. Because she knew from experience that without proof, they weren't going to believe her. So she called Lane, and she recorded it.
Why did you take the key in the first place?
I wanted to see you and properly talk to you, and I knew you wouldn't let me in otherwise.
And this is the part that's haunted people who followed this case, he said. Obviously something's not right in my head. I need to find out, or be locked up.
I think that's best, because it's just going to keep on going around this vicious circle, isn't it?
Yeah, I know. Oh no, I'm just not right in the head. I'm sorry. I'm just not right in the head. Or if I was, I wouldn't do it. Wouldn't have done that, would I?
Well, maybe you need to get help then.
He said it himself, out loud, on tape, and handed her exactly the evidence she needed. She took the recording straight to the police. Lane was arrested, and Officer PC John Mills sat down to interview him. For 12 minutes. 12 minutes, no review of the case history, no look at his background, no examination of the pattern of behavior stretching back years. Mills later admitted he found Lane's story plausible. He said the case wasn't his priority. Meanwhile, the day before that interview, Mills had attended a training course specifically about how to handle stalking cases and interview stalking suspects. Yet, Lane was only cautioned for stealing the key. Not breaking and entering. Not stalking. Just the theft of a key. Shana didn't even get a phone call. She got a letter informing her that her case had been closed. Friends said she was furious, couldn't believe it, and from that point on, she stopped reporting. Because, what was the point? By early August, a friend named Joanne Pumphrey was with Shana when she spotted Lane loitering outside her home again. Joanne saw it with her own eyes, and when she urged Shana to call the police, Shana's response was quiet and devastating. They're not going to believe me, anyway. 6 weeks later, she was dead. Now, here's what the final days of Shauna Grice's life looked like. We're going to talk about it because it matters. And we need to see how much Shauna was willing to go just to get her life. Her peace back. August 23rd, 2016. 2 days before she was murdered, Shauna agreed to meet Michael Lane at a hotel in Hove. She thought if she could just sit across from him face to face, no ambiguity, and make it absolutely clear that it was over, that she was with Ashley, and she was done, maybe he'd finally accept it. Maybe it would stop. She told him clearly, "It's finished. Don't contact me again." And he seemed to accept it. But later that same evening, Lane told a friend that he was depressed about being dumped. And then he said something else, something that friend should have called the police about immediately. She'll pay for what she's done. The very next day, August 24th, Michael Lane drove to a petrol station. He was caught on CCTV filling a red can with fuel. He went home and put it in his car, along with a change of clothes, a high-visibility jacket, and a peaked cap pulled low. Things you'd use to disguise yourself. Things you'd prepare in advance. He wasn't packing for an argument. He wasn't planning to knock on her door and beg her to take him back. He was preparing for what came next, and he already knew exactly what that was going to be. Shana had one more morning left. Now, this is the part of the story that gets really hard to hear. If you need to take a break here, I'll totally understand. But it has to be told, because Shana deserves for people to understand exactly what happened to her and exactly what it cost. August 25th, 2016. 7:25 in the morning. Ashley kisses Shauna goodbye and leaves for work. Her 2 housemates had already gone. The house was quiet. She was getting ready for a normal Thursday. She had plans that evening. Dinner with Ashley, a family wedding the following day. Lane had parked nearby. He knew her schedule, he'd been tracking it for months. He watched and he waited. And at 7:29 a.m., CCTV captured him walking toward the bungalow on Chrisdory Road, cap pulled low, hood up, disguise in place. He wasn't there to talk. He went inside. A neighbor heard a raised female voice. Then silence. Lane took a knife from Shauna's kitchen. He went to her bedroom. At approximately 7:40 a.m., Shana Grice's throat was cut. She was 19 years old. Forensic evidence confirmed the attack came from behind. She slumped beside her bed, and she was conscious for a brief time before she died from blood loss. A text message arrived on her phone at 7:42 from a friend. She never opened it. Lane took her bank card, walked to a nearby ATM, tried to withdraw £250, the amount he'd decided she owed him. But there was only £60 in her account. He took every penny of it. Then he went back, dismantled the smoke alarm, poured petrol over her body and the bed, set the room on fire, closed the bedroom door behind him and walked away. Then he went to a nearby shop and checked his lottery ticket. Then he went to the dentist. Then he went to work. He arrived at the garage in Burgess Hill just after midday. By all accounts, he seemed completely fine, calm, unbothered. No one who saw Michael Lane that day said he appeared stressed or distressed in any way. Shauna Grice was lying dead in her bedroom, and he was checking whether he'd won the lottery. The bedroom door he'd closed behind him turned out to be his only mistake. It sealed the room from oxygen. So, the fire burned itself out before it could destroy everything. The evidence survived, but Shauna didn't. By mid-morning on August 25th, Shauna hadn't shown up for work, hadn't called, hadn't answered her phone. Her manager rang Ashley, and Ashley, who knew better than anyone what Shauna had been living through, felt it immediately. Something was wrong. He called his father Ian and asked him to go and check on her. Ian Cook pulled up outside that bungalow on Chrisdory Road, and he knew before he even got to the door, smoke seeping from the letterbox. A bloody footprint on the doorstep. He went in anyway, calling her name, moving through the haze toward her bedroom. The door wouldn't open. Something was wedged underneath it. He pushed harder, forced his way through and found her. Face down on the bed, long blonde hair, motionless. Ian Cook later described that moment in court. I saw the bed, and at first I thought it was just a duvet. Then I realized there was a body. I was shouting out for Shauna. I then saw her face down, arms to the side. He walked out of that house and straight into the arms of the police and paramedics who were already arriving. Ashley's father, a man who had adored that girl right from the beginning, now had to carry what he saw in that bedroom for the rest of his life. That same afternoon, just hours after he'd set her bedroom on fire, checked his lottery ticket, gone to the dentist, and arrived calmly at work, Michael Lane was arrested at the garage in Burgess Hill. Officers found him putting a tire in the back of a car, completely unbothered. The picture of someone with nothing to hide. When they interviewed him, he denied everything, then changed his story, then changed it again, eventually landed on, I went to her house. I found her already dead. I panicked and I left. He claimed he didn't call 999 because he was scared he'd get the blame.
Because I was scared. I didn't know what. I'd never seen a dead body. I didn't know what was going on. Didn't know.
Okay, so let's go with this idea that you're scared. Talk me through that. What were you scared would happen?
Well, the police would turn up and think that I did it.
When asked in court why he went to check his lottery ticket immediately after supposedly finding his ex-girlfriend's dead body, his answer was, because I didn't want what I saw to be true. But the evidence didn't care about his story. Bloody Lonsdale trainers found hidden in a hedgerow nearby, his DNA inside, Shauna's blood on the sole, the tread, a perfect match for the footprint on her doorstep. £60 in cash found in his car, 2 20s, 2 10s, the exact same amount in the exact same denominations withdrawn from Shauna's account that morning. CCTV placing him at the ATM. CCTV placing him buying petrol the day before. A text message sent to Shana's phone at 7:42 a.m. that she never opened because she was already gone. March 2017. Lewes Crown Court. He pleaded not guilty, forcing Shauna's family to sit through 3 weeks of testimony, including watching his defense team attempt to paint Shauna as the architect of her own suffering. Her romantic choices were dissected. Her character was questioned. Her parents sat in that courtroom and listened to it all. And then 12 women walked into that court and testified. 12. Each one describing behavior almost identical to what Shauna had experienced. The obsession, the following, the messages, the control, the refusal to accept no. A decade of the same man doing the same things to woman after woman after woman. None of it had ever resulted in a single prosecution before Shauna's murder. When the verdict came, the courtroom erupted, cheering, crying, Shauna's family holding each other. The jury had taken just over 2 hours. Guilty. Life in prison. Minimum 25 years. And then the judge, Mr. Justice Green, turned his attention not just to Lane, but to the people who had enabled him to get this far. He said, directly and publicly, to Sussex Police, she was treated as the wrongdoer and having committed a criminal offense. Michael Lane was treated as the victim. There was seemingly no appreciation that a young woman in a sexual relationship with a man could at one and the same time be vulnerable and at risk of serious harm. A judge. In open court. At a murder sentencing. Using his platform to tell the police on the record, for the world to hear that they got it catastrophically. Fatally wrong. Because they did. But what happened next? After the verdict, after the sentencing, after the judge had said out loud what everyone already knew what actually happened to the people who failed Shauna, the short answer is not much. A 2-year investigation was launched into Sussex Police's handling of the case. 14 officers and staff were investigated, and of those, just 2 faced public disciplinary hearings. PC Godfrey, the one who fined Shana £90 for wasting police time after she'd just been physically assaulted, faced a misconduct panel in July 2019. And he showed up to that hearing and told them he was right. Still, with Shauna dead and her parents sitting in that room, he sat there and said she wasted his time. Said the 5 kisses in her texts meant there was nothing to worry about. Said, and I want you to really hear this, absolutely, she did waste my time. He was found guilty of misconduct. Not gross misconduct, misconduct. And it didn't matter anyway, because he'd already retired on a full police pension. No consequences reached him. PC Mills, the one who interviewed Lane for 12 minutes after he broke into Shana's home, resigned from Sussex Police the week before his own hearing. Didn't even show up. Was found guilty of gross misconduct in his absence and barred from ever working in policing again. But he was already gone. His resignation meant the force couldn't touch him. Both men walked out the door before justice could follow them through it. Sharon and Richard Shana's parents, her only parents, attended those hearings. They sat and listened to officers justify and minimize and deflect. Afterwards, they put out a statement. They said the hearing was a joke and a sham. They said the panel had allowed a wholesale character assassination of their daughter, who wasn't there to defend herself. They then asked for a full public inquiry into Shauna's death. It was denied. Let that sink in. Imagine you're a parent, and your last fight for your only child who got killed in the worst ever situation gets denied. But here's what did change. Sussex Police referred themselves to the IOPC and issued a formal apology. Fining, stalking, and domestic abuse victims for wasting police time was abolished across the UK. National stalking training was overhauled. Shauna's case is now cited in police training materials across the country.
The force has made huge improvements. You know, they have a stalking improvement plan. We're getting all new recruits, get training around stalking. But what it also showed was that other forces nationally are woefully behind. They're not properly risk assessing victims. And of course, if you don't get that risk assessment right in the first place, the whole policing response that then follows in behind can be inadequate.
Changes that should never have needed to happen. Changes that came far, far too late for the 19-year-old girl who had been asking for help since February and was dead by August. Her parents said it best. It's too little, too late for Shauna. They were right. But at the end of all of this, the failures, the hearings, the changes that came too late, I keep coming back to her. Shauna Grice, born January 13th, 1997, murdered the 25th of August, 2016, 19 years old. She was vivacious and loud and kind. She was her parents' only child. She was the mum of her friend group, the one looking out for everybody else, even when nobody was looking out for her. Ashley Cook, the boy who loved her since school, the one who kissed her goodbye that Thursday morning and never saw her again, said it better than anyone ever could. He said Shauna was the nicest person you could ever wish to meet. She wasn't just beautiful, she was kind, and she would go out of her way to help others. That's who she was. That's who they took. She did everything right, she called. 5 times. She recorded the evidence herself because she knew they wouldn't believe her without it. She asked for help until asking felt pointless. And yet, the system looked her in the eye and told her she was the problem. She wasn't. She never was.
They must be considered on the information they knew at the time, what they did and why they did it, and how that is recorded and rationaled. If that's found to be at fault or found to be lacking, then of course they must be held accountable for those actions. But actually, they shouldn't be held accountable because of a death or because of something that happened in the future.
If this case leaves you with one thing, let it be this. When someone tells you they're scared, believe them. Check on them. Take it seriously. Because Shauna was telling the truth every single time she picked up that phone. And she deserved so much better than what she got. Rest in peace, Shauna. If this story hit you the way it hit me, if you're sitting there feeling that specific mix of grief and fury and complete disbelief that this was allowed to happen, then I want to hear from you. Drop a comment below and tell me where you're watching from. And then tell me this, because I genuinely want to know. Do you think PC Godfrey should have gone to prison? Because a young woman told the police 5 times that she was terrified. He fined her. She was dead within months. He retired on a full pension, and yet sat at his hearing years later and said he'd do it again. So I want to know, where's the line between incompetence and criminal negligence? Because to me, that line got crossed a long time before August 25th, 2016. Tell me what you think. I do read every comment. And if this video meant something to you, if you think Shana's story deserves to be heard by more people, please hit the like button. It costs you nothing, and it genuinely helps this video reach people who need to see it. And if you're not subscribed yet, this is the moment. Every week on this channel, we cover real cases, real families, real stories told with the care and the weight they deserve. Shana's parents, Sharon and Richard, have never stopped fighting for their daughter, for accountability, for change, for her name to mean something beyond what was taken from her. The least we can do is remember her properly. Links to stalking support resources are in the description. Please share them. Someone you know might need them. I'd see you on the next one.